Hello, it's Katie here again, and in today's little offering I want to show you a new beading technique. And this is certainly a new beading technique for me. It's something I just stumbled across through a bit of experimentation. What I'm not sure about is whether it's a brand new beading technique to the rest of the beading world or whether someone else has already done this before me. So you may have seen this before, or you may be experiencing an absolute first here. So what is this amazing new technique? It's something that I am terming diagonal cubic right angle weave, or since cubic right angle weave's a bit of a mouthful, diagonal crawl. Now it's brilliant for making beaded ropes, so anything that requires a beaded rope, this will give you a new option to try. That could be just a bracelet or necklace all on its own, so you can use this technique for making simple jewellery. Or maybe it's a situation where you need to add a beaded rope onto something like a pendant. So, next question, how difficult is it? Well, if you've already done cubic right angle weave, basic standard version, then this isn't too tricky at all. It's just a new way of working it, really. If you haven't done cubic right angle weave before, then I do have a free online class that you can use to learn that technique, and I would recommend that you at least go through the class. I mean, you may be able to pick up some of the technique from the demonstration you're about to get here, but I think some prior knowledge is probably going to be helpful. Now, I've also put together a blog post to go alongside this video because I know it's quite tricky taking everything in when you're just watching someone on camera. So it can be helpful to have a few diagrams, a few explanations that you can sort of browse at your leisure. So I'll give you the link to the blog post in the video description down below, and I suggest that you check that out as well for a bit more information. But I think it's probably time now to just get on and show you what this diagonal crawl looks like, and of course the bit you're really waiting for, how do you do it? So follow me over to the beading table and let me show you more. Okay, so let me explain to you what I mean by diagonal crawl. You're looking at a few samples here. This is the one I'm going to show you how to make. So let me just bring it up a bit closer so you can see. It looks great using two colours, and I've actually chosen to do that because it makes life easier for you. So you've got this effect of beads strung together, but they're all beaded beads, and each of them is a unit of cubic right angle weave. So once you've got the technique down pat, there's all sorts of variations you can try. In this little sample I've used just one colour of beads, so it's no different to do, it's just perhaps harder to see where you're going when you haven't got different colours to guide you. If you want to get even more advanced, then you can also try this with 4mm pearls. Now when you're working cubic right angle weave with that size of bead, you do tend to get a little bit of thread showing. So I've just used size 11 delicas to cover up my thread paths. I'm not going to be showing you how to make this sample here today, but I did just want to give you an idea of some of the options that are available. So that shows you what it looks like, but I haven't really told you very much about it. So if you remember, cubic right angle weave is basically about creating a cube using your beads working in right angle weave. Now that is not, by the way, a sample of cubic right angle weave, I just wanted to illustrate the cube shape. Typically, when you make a strand of cubic right angle weave, you're working each unit off the previous unit, so you get this straight rope. With the diagonal, you're getting this individual bead effect because instead of working off a flat side of your previous cube, you're going to be working off one edge of it. So if I just show you why I brought these cubes in. Generally, a strip of cubic right angle weave, you make your first cube, then you would work off one side of it to create your second cube. You'd work off the next side to build out a third cube, and so on. So you get something like this. When I say you're working off an edge, with the diamond cubic right angle weave, instead of building off that side, you're just going to build off that single edge. So you get an effect like this, where your cubes are sitting diagonally joined to one another. So that is what I am going to now demonstrate and show you how to do. And it's really honestly no more difficult than the basic cubic right angle weave in straight lines. In fact, I think there's quite a possibility you might even find it a little bit easier. So let me grab some beads and I'll show you what to do here. Okay, so I'm back with some nice large size 6 seed beads so you can really see what I'm doing as clearly as possible. Now before you start this, I would strongly recommend that you have already learned how to do basic cubic right angle weave. And if you do need to learn how to do that, I have a free online class that you can take. I've detailed how to find that in the blog post that accompanies this video, and you'll see a link to the blog post in the description just down below. So we will sort of cover the basic cubic right angle weave as we need to, but I'm going to assume that you've got a certain amount of knowledge there already. So we're going to start by making a single cube. So remember, that starts with the base. Pick up 4 beads, and I like to knot my working and tail thread to secure those, but you can pass through them all again to form them into a circle that way. So I'm just tying a double knot here, and I will just leave a tail thread that's long enough to stitch in or do something else with later on. So there we go, we've got 4 beads. They're the base of our cube, and off each of those 4 beads we're going to build a wall. So if you remember, the cubic right angle weave mantra is pick up 3, pass through that first bead in your base again, so you've formed another little 4 bead unit. Then you're going to go on through the next bead in your base. This time we're picking up 2. We're going through the side of the previous wall and through the bead in the base. And if we pull that up tight, we've created a new wall. We're starting to actually properly get walls standing up from our base here. Carry on through the next bead in the base, and again we're picking up 2 beads. You're going to go through the side bead from your previous wall, through that same bead in your base, and if we pull everything up tight, we've now got 3 little walls sticking up from our base. So for the last wall, you go through the bead in the base, but then you need to go up through the bead on the side of your first wall. Just add 1 bead on the needle this time, down through the side bead from your previous wall, and back through the bead in the base. So you've created your next 4 bead unit or wall. From here, you just want to link the top of your structure. So you're going to carry on up through that side, along through the top bead, and then you're going to work your way around, linking all 4 of those top beads just simply by passing through them. So that is cubic right angle weave, and that's built our first unit. Now from there we're going to go on and build another unit but this time we're going to build it off one of the side edges. So I'm going to effectively start from scratch again by building my floor first. So I've got one bead of the floor in place. I want to add another 3. So this is exactly like those first 4 beads that you added on when we very first started. So you've got your 4 bead base. So now we're going to build our first wall. Remember, we had 3 beads going on, and they go through that first bead in our base, which happens to be the shared bead from the previous unit. Then you continue on through the next bead in your base. You're going to put on 2 beads to build the next wall. You're going to go on through the next bead in your base. Again, you're going to put on 2 beads to build the next wall, but to make things easier, I'm going to ask you to put on 1 bead of your first colour and 1 bead of your second colour, and I'll explain why we did that just in a moment. So then you continue on through the last bead in your base, up through the next side, and you've got 1 bead to add in to go down through the side, along the base, and now we need to seal everything, so we're just going to go back up and continue on to seal around the top of this new unit. And now comes the point where I explain why I asked you to use a different colour bead. Because we've completed our second unit, we've got our 2 effectively beaded beads in place, but this coloured bead is going to tell you where you need to start adding on your next unit. So your next unit is basically working off the top of your second wall, and that's positioned so it's going to sit in a direct diagonal line across. So let's do that one more time. So we're going to start by putting 3 beads on and building the floor of our next unit. We're going to then put on 3 beads to build the first wall, so that goes through that same shared bead again. Then move on through the next bead in your base. You've got 2 beads going on to build the second wall. Just get tail thread out the way there. Carry on through the next bead in your base, and so it's this third wall where we're going to add in the different coloured bead. So that's the second of the 2 beads you pick up, just to mark where we want to go at the end of this unit. Now continue on through the base, up through the side, 1 bead going on to complete our last wall, and if we continue up and work around just to seal up the top, and then continue on till we're exiting from that coloured bead, ready to add the next unit. Now you might have noticed I have ended up switching my direction of travel as I've been making each new unit of my cubic right angle weave. That's something that can happen, but you can also find that you're always using the same direction of travel. Basically, the thing that determines that is when you're sealing in the top. So when you're coming up of that final side to decide where you're going to go to determine the direction you seal the top, you can go straight on and work around like that, and if you do that, you'll change direction of travel for your next unit. If you come up and go sideways through that final bead you added on your final side, you'll be sealing the top in the opposite direction, and that means you'll keep to the same direction of travel as you build your next unit of crawl. So that's a bit complicated to explain, and it's not something you need to sort of learn. Just be aware that can happen and make your own observations as you go along. So that is basically the technique. As long as you know how to do basic cubic right angle weave, you should be absolutely fine. All you're doing is building each unit from scratch, working off a single bead from your previous unit. So you get that nice diagonal effect, which makes it look like you've created a series of beaded beads here. And these make lovely ropes to attach to something. You can just use them as jewellery, as bracelets and necklaces. And if you know other variations on cubic right angle weave, you can also experiment by applying those variations to create this diagonal look as well. So I hope that's given you something to explore and play with. And as I say, I have got a blog post that accompanies this video, and that gives you a bit more background. It includes a few diagrams, goes over the explanations again. So you might want to take a look at that in order to digest things more fully. But that should give you something new to work on. And if you've enjoyed that, then I'd love it if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do share other technique videos on there. I've also got a few complete beading projects that you can try, and I've got a lot of showcases of some of the beading patterns and tutorials that I sell on my website. So have a browse around, and happy beading!